Growing up, my family would go on road trips every Christmas holiday from Lagos to our hometown in Adamawa State, Nigeria. Inspired by this experience are 25 staple recipes and heartfelt stories just for you. This is Sally's 25 Days of Christmas. For our Kilishi, we're going to be using cow meat, which is beef, and the first thing we are going to do is to dress our beef. So using a very sharp knife, we're going to make sure that we trim off every form of fat, and I think it's called a silver lining, this whitish part on top of the meat. We're going to cut that off because we do not need that. This part of the beef does not cook even if you cook it down, and so most Kilishi that people buy by the roadside and they see that it turns out not to be meat, it's actually this part of the cow. So we're going to trim this off thinly and very neatly. You definitely need a very sharp knife, but at the same time you have to be very careful so you do not cut yourself during this process, right? I had actually bought this meat a couple of days prior to when I made this video, and I kept it in the freezer, and the beef, it froze, and so before I could even use it, I had to defrost it before I could use it, and I think that took a toll on the texture of the beef. So it kind of made it difficult for me to get a very nice and even layer of thin slice when I was trying to trim it for my Kilishi. You'll see that later on in the video and you understand better. So if you are making this, I recommend that you buy fresh beef from the market or the butchery and you just use it that same day. Don't freeze the beef before using it. Once you buy it fresh, just use it that day, right? Kilishi is one of northern Nigerian staple treats. Okay, it's also called beef jerky, and in Nigeria here we call it Kilishi. So this is the silver lining. As you can see, we've taken that off. I repeated the same thing for the second cut of my beef, and then I'm just going to go ahead now and make my thin cuts. When I bought this meat, I asked the butcher not to cut it, but he didn't hear me and cut it into two halves, and that made it a bit stressful for me trying to make my thin cuts, and it gave my Kilishi all manner of sizes and shapes, but it's okay. So you are going to buy a piece of beef that isn't cut into small sizes like this. Let it be kind of like a bit longer, right? Or just like these two pieces joined together. Don't cut your beef into two equal halves. This was an error by the butcher I bought this meat from. So here I'm just going to follow and cut this thing very thinly. I really do not know how to explain how to cut it thinly. You can maybe try to watch some videos online of the local markets of Hausa men who make suya and Kilishi, especially Kilishi, and you can see how they would cut the beef so thinly. Or you can just do it however best you know how to. You can just cut your beef thinly. Really, you're trying to get a single long sheet because usually that is how Kilishi comes. It comes in one long sheet and all of that, but it was very difficult. I won't even lie, it wasn't an easy task. I was sweating when I was trying to do this thing because it took me so much time. And the beef, like I said, I had frozen the beef before doing this, so it was just falling apart and making it quite difficult for me to actually make my thin cuts. So this is one thin cut I was able to make. I had to do this in bits because the beef kept on separating, it kept on cutting off and all that stuff. And so I'm just going to try my possible best to make my thin cuts. Okay, like I said, you can just watch this very carefully, and then you can also do your research on how to cut thin beef. Or on a lighter note, for those of us who really cannot stress ourselves, you can actually get them cut for you. So if you live in the north, you're of a higher advantage here because it's a very, very normal thing there. I mean, they literally produce these things there. So you can just maybe go to local markets where they sell and make Kilishi, or suya and ask them, if they know anyone or anywhere you can go to get your meat thinly cut or thinly sliced. Not the regular butcher would do this. It has to be a specialized kilishi maker. Okay, so you have to go where they actually make kilishi and ask them, or just go to the northern men, the Hausa men who sell beef. Ask them if they can help you make thin cuts for kilishi, and it would actually really save you the stress of doing this. But as for me, where I stay, we do not have that privilege to go and ask anybody to do it or whatever. If you are abroad and maybe you have a place where they have a machine that does like really thin slices of meat, then maybe you can go there as well to get your meat cut for you. It has to be paper thin, like literally it has to be paper thin. That is how kilishi is. And so here I was just doing my best. I was fighting for my life cutting this. So kilishi is like a major staple food or staple treat in northern Nigeria here. In English it's called beef jerky, but we call it kilishi here in Nigeria. And I have to tell you that this is one universal treat that is enjoyed. Even though we make it here, there are people all around the country and even outside of the country who do enjoy this. It's so tasty. It's very, very easy to package, easy to carry around, easy to eat, something to just snack on. But anyways, just a quick story. As a northerner, whenever we travel home for Christmas, almost everyone around us, our neighbors, our friends here in Lagos, they do know we are traveling, so whenever we travel, there's always when you're coming back, buy kilishi for us. And it was like a thing. Anytime we traveled home for Christmas, we would always buy kilishi and come and share for all our people, our friends here in Lagos, even the non-Hausas. If I majorly, they were for the non-Hausas because they would always want to have the kilishi and all of that. And traveling to Adamawa, I've said in one of my previous videos that we normally break the journey into 2 days. So we first go to Abuja, and then from Abuja we go to Adamawa. So from Abuja would pass through Jos, Bauchi, Gombe, and then we get to Adamawa. And in Bauchi State, I can tell you they make the best kilishi in Nigeria. Like Bauchi makes the best suya and kilishi. There's a place called University of Suya. If you go there, people who do tourism and enjoy all these things, you guys should go there. Go to Bauchi and try kilishi from Bauchi. You will thank me. They sell I don't know how they do it, but it stands out from Kaduna kilishi, Adamawa like it stands out from every other northern Nigerian kilishi. They even make it in different flavors and levels of spice and sweetness. It's moist, it's not so dry, it's pure beef. And if you speak of their suya, oh my goodness, that is the best suya I've had in my life. Anything that will carry me to the north, I must visit Bauchi just so that I can buy their suya and kilishi. So take that from me. So now guys, I am spreading this out on my rack. I'm going to dehydrate this in my oven. That is the next step to take. Actually, you're going to spread this out thinly, just one layer. Don't overlap them. Make sure that each piece of meat has its own room. And then we're just going to dehydrate this. If you have a dehydrator, good for you, you can use that as well. But for me, I used my oven and I dehydrated this for about 45 minutes to an hour. You want the meat to be very dry. You're not going to add any seasoning whatsoever. It's just the pure beef, and then you're going to dehydrate it. So while that is going, I am going to prepare my ingredients for the dressing. Here we have tunkuza, which is basically granite paste, and then we have dried chili peppers, which we are going to blend until we have this. And then we have powdered ginger and powdered garlic, red food coloring, just very little powdered red food coloring. This is the brand of powdered red food coloring I use. It's excellent brand, that's what it's called. Finely chopped onions, a little bit of sugar, seasoning cube. This is like a staple northern Nigerian seasoning cube. You can use any brand of your choice. So we're just going to combine all our dried ingredients together. I didn't use all of the sugar because I didn't want it to be too sweet. I'm just going to combine all the dry ingredients, and then after adding in my seasoning cube, I also went in with table salt, which I forgot to mention earlier, but I added my table salt and mixed everything together. You're going to mix this till well combined, and then you're going to set this aside. So next we are going to dilute our tunkuza, which is our roasted granite puree. Add in our onions and then add in water little by little. We're going in little by little so that we do not make the paste too runny. This is what is going to help us adhere our dry ingredients to our kilishi, and also this is going to serve as a coating on the dried beef so that the dried beef doesn't like dry out totally. It's still going to get that texture, that covering, that little bit of moisture, but also nice flavor and coating. So we're just going to add in our water little by little, and we are going to dilute this. Okay, I told you guys in my previous videos making northern cuisines that in the north we cook a lot with our hands, so you have to make sure that your hands are properly washed and cleaned. If you're not comfortable using your hands, feel free to put on some gloves. I can assure you that it would be very frustrating sometimes using gloves to do some of these things, and it can be very messy as well, but whatever tickles your fancy. Okay, and the consistency you're looking for is something that is not too thick and not too thin. You just want it to be a bit runny, not too thin, but like a bit runny. That's what we're looking for. If you make it too thick, it would overwhelm the beef when you coat the beef. Now I just went in with my red food coloring, my dried seasonings and spices, and then I'm just going to incorporate this as well. So the red food coloring, like I said earlier, you just need little. You don't need too much. A little goes a long way, especially this excellent brand. A little goes a long way. Okay, it depends on the brand of food coloring you're using, but no matter the brand, it's better to go in little by little and then gradually increase it if it's not enough. But you don't want a situation whereby your Kilishi is looking bloody, like bloody red. It's just supposed to look appetizing. Really, that's what the red food coloring is supposed to do. So now that my beef is properly dehydrated, you can see how it looks. I took that out of the oven. You're going to get a flat plate or tray and transfer your dressing. Okay, so now I had realized that my dressing was too thick, and I went in with a little bit more water to dilute this, and I also gave it a taste to ensure that the salt content was okay, right? So if you need to add more salt at this point, add, but you also have to just give the dressing a taste to be sure that your salt and seasoning cube is enough. So we are just going to dip and marry and dress our beef in this liquid dressing to just make sure that everywhere is well coated, make sure that everything is covered nicely, and then you're going to lift this up to drip down a bit so that the excess dressing drips off a bit, and then we're just going to do that for every single piece of our beef. It was after doing this first one that I realized the dressing was too thick, and then I went in with some more water to dilute it, which made the rest pretty much easier to do. And then I continued coating the rest of my dried beef. So you're just going to repeat this process for every single piece of beef that you have. Of course the dehydrated beef, and then we are going to arrange this back our rack that we used in dehydrating it. I would advise that at this point you place like a tray or something underneath the rack to catch all the excess juice that would be dripping off, so that you don't make a mess of your oven or your dehydrator or your work surface. Okay, so you're just going to do that, and then as you dip the beef, you just make sure that you arrange them on your rack. So once you're done, you're going to pop this in your oven for a few minutes. You're not going to let this dehydrate in your oven for as long as you did when you were trying to dehydrate your beef, okay? You don't want it to be overly dry because it's just going to be very hard and very dry to eat, right? So you just want a situation where the dressing dries up a bit and coats the beef. You can check in from time to time and touch the beef. You want to be able to touch or hold onto your kilishi without the dressing staining your hands. However, you don't want it to be extremely dry or totally dried, okay? So once that is done, you take it out of the oven and enjoy. Kilishi has a long shelf life. You can store this on the shelf. Just wrap it up with some baking paper or newspaper and keep it in a dry and cool place, and you can enjoy this. I made this at night. Best believe it didn't see the light of day because myself and my family rushed to this and really enjoyed it. So I hope you guys try this recipe. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, share this video with your loved ones, and I'll see you in my next video. Have a beautiful Christmas.